In this video, this is again one that it's not so much me writing lots and lots of lines of code. I'm just going to make some notes in here, but it's very important that you get the crucial concept. At the heart of this is the idea that good code is readable, and it's obviously correct, okay? What do you mean by readable? What's the significance of that? And here is the heart of it. And I've had this conversation with several students already. Let me just get the thing. So you write code because you're working in a team. And you also write code that you will look back upon and have to make sense of. So if your code is kind of, it works. You say to me, hey, what's the problem with you? It works. It does what I need it to do. And you use variable names like this. This is a very, very common one, right? Say you write something there. You just use a single letter for a variable name, and because it makes sense and you do stuff with it, right? But this is not readable. This letter has no meaning. It's just a letter. So what we mean and need to encourage in you is good practice and not so good practice, okay? There's issues about writing good readable code, and there are several different elements to it. And one of them is variable names. And remember, all variable names use camel cases in this course. First word is always lowercase, and the second word within the name of a variable is always upper. That's true for functions. The only thing it's not true for is objects. Objects always start with a capital. Okay, so there are conventions and ways of writing it. The best, I think, point here is to have a look at the difference between these two. This function says C of P. Okay, and it's quite dense. It only used 3 lines of code. This said cost of pizza, and it looks much longer. Some of you will say, oh no, that's the better code, it's more efficient. Actually, efficiency of code is not related to the number of lines in this instance, not as you might think. Because all of the code that you write, all the functioning code, is always stripped down to its raw purpose. So if you use the word diameter rather than the letter D, from the program's point of view, it makes it no less efficient. If you split this whole process over several lines, for example, and you build it up, it makes it no less efficient in terms of the code working. But this second, look at this. The variables are clear, so I know that I'm collecting a diameter. So in my code, where is it? Down here somewhere, there. In that line of code, I know I'm dividing the diameter by 2 to give me the radius. I know that variable means area. Whereas up here, I've just got an x and I've just got a y, and I'm not sure what the meaning of the x is or the meaning of the y. I've got no context. When you say the pizza cost is blah, 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 why? Well, why didn't you call that cost or pizza cost? Why didn't you give it a name that actually made sense? There are two students approach this in a number of different ways. Some students understand straight away that this is clearer and easier to follow. Absolutely critical. Those of you who have coded before you've come to us can approach this problem in one or two ways. The first way is that you think this is irrelevant and trivial. So let's be clear, it isn't irrelevant or trivial. It makes a very big difference. You're going to be assessed by us, and we've got rules and constraints. If you go and work in a company and write code, they will have rules and constraints. If you write code just for yourself and you never work for anyone else, then you could probably write it in any way you like. But even then, if you don't use standards and rules and constraints, you won't even understand your own code. So it's neither trivial nor irrelevant. The second group of students who have experience make a real effort to get their naming right, how they lay out the code, so you can read it and you can make sense of it. There is a really, really bad habit in older programmers from the late 80s and 90s who wrote in C++ and C, and they all tended to use this style. And they attached to this kind of condensed style of writing a kind of snob value. Yeah, it's cool, I know what it means. If you don't know what it means, it's not me, it's you, you're the one with a problem, and all this type of attitude. you might have encountered it, or you might see that prejudice. My point to you is, it is actually a very unhelpful prejudice to have. The most useful approach you can make is that your code, you can just scan it and read it, literally read it. So I can see that the cost is being worked out by multiplying the area by something called pence per square meter. And pence per square meter suggests a constant value of some kind, right? A relationship between pence and square meterage. So here's my point, and we'll keep the video very, very short. Concentrate on how clear your code is, both to yourself and to anyone else looking at it. Don't assume that you're going to be clever by condensing and using these shortened variable names and stuff that doesn't make sense to anyone else. It is not simply good enough that your code works. It is almost as important that it is readable and legible, because there are very few software roles where someone works in isolation. So having legible code is critical.